previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along invites you to join MadLad. Jerome Judge Hinds as the Madness Entertainment Group Meg presents Auspicious August, featuring gods, legends, kings, and queens. So, get your pencils, pens, brushes, and stylus at the ready, and join in the tutorial fun. He'll be here every Saturday morning at 1 a.m. EST during the month of August 2026 to entertain you with superhero tutorial fun, art, pop culture, and entertaining chatter. And please feel free to leave comments below, during or after the show. It really helps with the algorithm. Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along Auspicious August.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, once again to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. And this time, I'm actually live. The last couple of shows, they were recorded. And during that time, I made a classic mistake in that I thought August had 4 weekends. Actually, it had 5. So I announced Super September, which I'm going to run the trailer for now. But of course, we're still in August. This month has 5 Augusts. Sorry, 5 Saturdays. So I'm going to run the trailer for what we'll be doing next month. But we still got one more Auspicious August exercise to do. And today we'll be doing a favorite character of mine. And I'm not going to mention his name until later. See if you can guess during the show who we're drawing. I'm going to try to keep that a secret. Last time I tried this, I said the name out loud. But meanwhile, let's have a look at what's going to happen next month here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. I've got the trailer here somewhere. Here we are. This is Super September.
Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along invites you to join MadLad. Jerome Judge Hinds as the Madness Entertainment Group presents Super September. That's right, you'll be learning how to draw characters from the Judge's SupaCross miniseries. And this is the crossover of crossovers, because all you'll need is a pencil, as this is in preparation for Inktober, where you'll get to ink all the pencil exercises from the previous month. And this is all truly in the style of Judge's new book, How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book. Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along Super September, only on the Madness Entertainment Group Network.
So you saw that, you heard that. And what's going to be really special next month is I'm inviting some of my students, ex-interns, ex-students on who will be drawing along with me. And that will all be in preparation, of course, for Inktober. So they'll be joining us one time each month to ink what they pencil in September. So here we are. We're doing, it's Auspicious August. So we're doing another big character. And I'm not going to tell you who we're drawing. I'm just going to let you try to figure it out as we go along. And I'm doing this exercise because it teaches us a lot. You know what we do here? We do lots of good planning, etc., on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. So first thing, we're going to start with a skeleton, as normal. And our character, as mentioned before, big characters often have big headgear. So I'm going to start with head here. And our character is going to have a slight head rotation, okay? So let's start with a basic shape of quite a strong head. And this we're drawing through the object. What do I mean by that? It means that a lot of the detail that we're seeing here will be covered up later. But we're drawing the head to make sure we get the headgear in position properly. And I'm a big advocate of drawing things almost mechanically, so you know exactly what's going on. Now, of course, the more experience you get, you may not have to bother with all these steps, but this is a draw along. And I'm assuming that I have maybe some budding artists out there, and I'm just trying to get into good practices. Now, our character is quite strong. So we can see his neck is into his body. We're giving the big shoulders kind of feel. And as mentioned, because our character is very godlike, he's going to have a big presence. Now, what do I always practice as well? Skeletons for hands. So let's put some fingers in here. As we've explored in some of the other exercises here during Auspicious August, regal characters often carry weapons. So I'm just going to put some matchsticks in here, which are a very good way to mark fingers. And we're going to have a thumb coming over here. So we can drop that in. If only I knew this kind of technique when I was very young. And we're going to have this arm kind of raised. So that's all the detail we want for this so far. Now, let's mark out the trajectory for the face. And no super angles here. As I mentioned, the head is slightly rotated. So I'm going to put the eyes about here. Is that low enough? We can drop it a little bit lower. Just a little bit lower there. And what do I always like to preach? I always like to preach finding the center of an object. So here. There. We'll put the center of the face there. And this is going to be very important because our character will have a very large headgear. And if you have almost like an armored mask that sits on the face, you have to be careful because the armor has depth. So you can see our character already has kind of a very strong chin and a short nose. Okay, this will add to the character later as we build him up. And he's going to have a prop. So at this skeletal stage, let's drop in the basic presence of his prop. Now we're doing a close-up here of our man. So we're only going to go down to the chest level. Good. So check what you've got. We're doing a bust shot, close-up of the head. And I'm time-lapsing this actually. So I have to be careful. I always have to be careful that I'm actually time-lapsing. Yeah, there we are. So now we're going to come to our first round of fleshing out. And something that I always preach when it comes to drawing is shapes rule. So we're going to start. We got some pretty hefty detail to put into this. So I don't want you to concern yourself too much with fine detail. Let's just get our shapes happening. So the first thing we can do is, oops, let's change the color of my pencil, is just add a bit of meat to the shoulders. And what do we always say here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along? What's one of our very common battle cries? You may all recognize this. Keep those pencils light. Indeed. I'm working digitally, which is quite an advantage. I can always lower the opacity of my pencils. I do like to treat these lessons as if we are working traditionally. And I want you to keep your pencils light. So in case we have to erase anything, it is easy. So here, so we had, did you see we had the matchstick in for the neck? So now we're going to flesh the neck out. Good. And I mentioned our character has a very large headpiece. So we're going for basic detail and shape. And it comes down between his eyes, but because of the rotation of the head, can you see that centerpiece will be slightly displaced? It's going to come up and over the eyes. There. And remember, symmetry is key. So we're going to come over. We want the other eyepieces to end about here. But basic shapes. We're going for our basic shapes first. And it's going to come down the side of his head, almost like a Roman helmet. And it's going to go off. It's going to taper. Over here. And it's a big headpiece. So let's put in the circumference. I want a big headpiece. You can judge the power in the realms of superheroes. Okay, look, this is pretty much a superhero kind of art stream, superhero drawing. And something you'll find with superheroes, there's like unwritten codes. And you can often judge the power levels of a character by just how big their headgear is, or indeed their cloak, their cape. It's one of the things that gives Batman such a presence. His cape is huge. Now he has no powers as such. But even in saying that, his cape is very, very intimidating. So you can see basic shape. Look at the size of this headgear as we go in. And it's going around the head. So we're going to come down the other side here. Check your depth. I know sometimes what we're drawing here is very much inspired by Jack King Kirby. And what's very interesting about a lot of King Kirby's creations is that when you put them through a full rotation, they're not the easiest things in the world to draw. But that guy had one hell of an imagination. As you're going to see, as we get into this character, you're going to see some crazy bits of design. Now, it's pretty complex. That's why I'm getting you to work with shapes. If we get straight to the detail, it can be a bit overwhelming. So when you look at this, you can see roughly the kind of headgear we're dealing with. Now, as I always say, I've mentioned it here already, the center line, finding the center of an object. So we've already got some headgear going on. We're going to find the center of that in a moment. Let's just flesh out these fingers. So again, basic shapes. Basic shapes. I've mentioned here on this show before that I'm very guilty of drawing my index fingers too large. So I'm going to start with my middle finger here today to make sure I keep myself in check. Now, as I said, we're doing something that's very inspired by the King Kirby. And he used to like to raise that index finger. Now, I think art is all about individualism in art. Isn't an easy thing to come by. And King Kirby had his own way of drawing lots of things. Even the way he would draw fingers was very much his own thing. Now I'm gonna make his middle finger curl in. I'm gonna extend his ring finger again, which is very Kirby. And the little finger is gonna come down the outside with a slight bend in it. I said Kirby almost made up his own rules when it came to anatomy. Quite amazing. And I think that in itself is genius. The way how you relay reality. You see what I mean? See, look how big my index finger is. It's a little bit big. That's my artistic footprint. Now we have the thumb. That's going to come over here. I love me some Kirby-esque. And this is all going to make sense. Trust me, it's all going to make sense later. And his lower arm is going to come down here. Okay, that will do for now. Our guy also has a huge mustache. Now we're talking about a god with a huge mustache. Maybe that's a bit of a clue of who we're drawing. I'm not going to say anything else. So he's got a huge handlebar mustache. Some of you extreme comic geeks out there, I think, might be able to guess who this is going to be. But I'm not going to say a word. Not a word. And it curls up. There. Good. Basic shapes. The detail is going to come later. Make sure we get our symmetry happening. Remember, the head is rotated. So this whisker is now going to curl a bit as it goes away from us. Make sure we get our lines of trajectory correct. Look at that. That man's got a big mustache. And he also has a large beard. So we can see his cheeks are going to come in about here. So we go to the other side. He's going to have a large beard. Let's put in the basic shape of this. And it's huge. It comes from under his headgear. It's going to come down here. It's going to be somewhere down here. Very big. So it draws with the object. Keep that nice and light. And it comes out the other side. Remember, it's under the helmet. So it's going to come out the other side of his face. It's going to be somewhere up here. It's going to come down and around. There we are. Let's bring this over a bit. Okay, let me get the volume of the beard in. Let's take that over just a little bit more. We're going to make sure we keep this even. Okay, that's about right there. Basic shapes. Shapes rule. There. Keep the pencils light. Erase this bit. Now, what I mentioned about center lines, let's make sure we keep our head screwed on. Here's the new center of the helmet. There. So anything we do here, we're going to make sure we keep it on track. Let's put in a basic shape. It's going to be slightly oval. And this is the helmet in front. And it's going to go over. Big headgear. Look at the throat. We can say, excuse me, the center of the throat is here. And he's going to be barrel chested. Big armor. He's a god. So these center lines are going to keep us on track. Now, I did this on purpose because can you see now how his beard is slightly off center? I'm going to go back here and I'm actually going to make that beard rest. We're going to assume that the pinnacle is nearer the center. And I'm going to take that over and make it rest on his chest. That shows us how keeping the center of our objects well defined really helps us keep things on track. He's gonna have his beard gonna come up here. Good. That's some basic shapes. That's looking pretty good. He's gonna have a headgear that we can use the skull as a marker. It's gonna have an elaborate pattern on his headpiece. There. It's gonna come up the other side equally. Remember, it's going around the head. This curve is going to become more shallow, correct? As it goes around the circumference of the head. Remember, basic shapes, basic shapes. We're going to put that detail in on top of these basic shapes after. When I was younger, I didn't fully understand that if a shape of something isn't correct, the detail cannot possibly be correct. And once you get a full appreciation of this, drawing just becomes a little bit easier. You get less overwhelmed. You could say. Good. We're on track here to doing some good stuff. Okay, his weapon. Should we start to flesh out his weapon? Okay. So we treated it skeletally. So we're going to put a line by the side to signify his weapon. This weapon is going to have, let's put a shape on the top of it. And pretty big. Let me keep this as symmetrical as possible. There. This is fundamental, what we call basic shape to his weapon. We're going to come back to that all-important detail later. Good. Yep, our character's taking shape. So we've got our center lines in. We've got fundamental shapes. And now we can start to look a bit more at some detail. So the first thing we're going to look at is where the windows to the soul may fall. We call it DT for detail. And I'm going to color my layer. Something that I like about Clip Studio Paint is that you can color your layers. So let's have a look at the eyes. So the eyes are coming from underneath. Remember, the head is slightly rotated, yeah? And we're going full Jack Kirby here, how he would draw eyes. Yeah. Funny, I'm in Singapore, and after moving here about 30 odd years ago, one thing that definitely changed in my art style is I was affected greatly by manga. You know, they have those very outsized eyes on their characters. And I found myself drawing eyes very large. And it still happens to this day. And something that definitely I did more with Western comic drawing was eyes tended to be smaller. Now remember, because of the helmet, the eyes are slightly off center. There. And very Western pupil. Just thicken up those eyelashes a bit. Now, our guy has very thick eyelashes that almost come from underneath the helmet, encroaching outside. So just putting a basic shape for them. And I think that any of you extreme geeks out there, I think you can already tell who this character is. I'm not going to say anything yet. Right now, his nose, slightly off center, right? So let's put a nostril here. The cleft of the nose there. Give that very, very Jack Kirby nose bridge. And the nostril over here. Nostril there. And our guy is old regal. He's an older guy. So you've got some lines. And I think by now, any of you extreme geeks out there, you know who this is. I'll give you another second to guess. By all means, please do write in. Send me a message. Who do you think this is? I've got to remember to keep an eye on the chat as well, because sometimes people pop up and I have no idea that they're there. I think most of you know who this is going to be. Indeed, it is the father of the mighty Thor. It is Odin. And the way Jack Kirby would draw this guy, I always thought was extraordinary. Now, we got basic detail going in. So we're going to start putting in some detail now. And the first thing that I want us to look at is his headgear. Can be very, very complex. So the first thing he's got is he's got like a visor thing that we've got here. And this carries off the head there and there. So we complete this. And it comes up, he's got a very elaborate pattern of an eagle on this. But let's get this basic shape in first. It said, Jack Kirby had an amazing imagination. And the pattern that we got a center line. And there's a pattern that goes either side of this. There. Let's put these lines in. Whoops, that should be a little bit higher. There. Good. Now let's get this. There's an eagle. It's like in the shape of an eagle. Let's raise that slightly. Got to make sure we adhere to our centers. Always keep tracking your centers. So the eagle, the tail kind of comes down here. And part of the tail feather comes up here. And as I said, Jack Kirby is his style of decor truly unique. There, and you get coming over the top here are like feet, bird's feet. there. We come over the top, other side. And the basic shapes that we've got going keeps us on track to make sure we draw things in the right area. And remembering that it's going around the shape of his head. And we've always got to take that into account. That's what makes drawing large armor a bit daunting. I remember the first time I drew a transformer. It was a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Because unlike humans, we can move, we're pliable. But metal, inorganic things, can't move. So if you draw something in the wrong place, eventually you will be exposed, because there's only one place that certain things can be. And it's got a circle. The head here, the wings come out, and there's a circle. Very interesting. Let's put this coming up first. Get this basic shape in. And dead center here is a circle. Piece of decoration. And make sure we keep it on that center line equally. There. And Jack Kirby also, he had lots of textures in what he would create, which I always find to be quite fascinating. So we're going to try to stick with this basic idea of shapes. So we've got this visor thing that I mentioned, and it comes up, another shape comes up the side of his head, and it joins this other basic shape that we've already got here. There, we can drop that in, and then we can come the other side and drop it in here. And it's like two large cylinders coming off the side here, like cogs. This kind of reminds me of Iron Man's ears. When I'm drawing armor, I like to do things symmetrically. So as I put something in on one side, I will go the other side and drop that same thing in. Of course, it's coming from behind his head. His head is slightly rotated, so we're going to see less of the one over here. And during this auspicious month, auspicious August, we've explored other characters of elaborate headgear, elaborate collars, etc. But I would say that Odin here is the most elaborate. Now there's another big shape that comes over here. So let's put this in. And it comes down to near where that meets. And we're going to get to some detail in a moment on this headgear that I think is really, really cool. Okay, so we're trying to go around the head. Keeping the shape in mind as much as possible. I mean, shapes are very odd things, because as they change, as they go, as shapes relate to other shapes, especially when there's things like a depth of curve, it can actually get more complex Didn't even realize. So there. Now it's this shape by the top of the eagle's head, right? It's an oval. You must remember to keep in mind it's going around the shape of the head. And sometimes when Jack Kirby would draw, he was less, how can I say, he was less mechanical in that he would, as animators found out, he often drew things that technically weren't really possible to draw. But I think he was more caught up in the moment, and you know, his stuff just looked so good. But if you're going to model it in 3D, you've got to take care. And something that they did in one of the movies is the lady Hela. She's like some sort of like a queen of the underworld. What they did in the movie, I thought was absolutely brilliant. They got her headgear absolutely spot on, man. I never thought I'd see two things in movies that I saw that I'm very surprised that they achieved. One is Hela's headgear, and the other was in Avengers Endgame when Ant-Man changed his polarity and became Giant Man. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. That was one of my favorite, well, definitely my favorite part of all of the Avengers movies. Superb. I never thought I'd ever see Giant Man in a movie. God, I'm being a geek. Okay, so this is going to go around here, and here's, you can see where it's like, maybe I've over-exaggerated that depth somewhat. I'm going to take this over here. Just broaden that slightly. I will make that very, very wary of not getting my depth in. Very, very indeed. And I'm going to now broaden this line to come over here slightly. So even drawing these things so many times, I still can find myself in a bit of indecision in things like rotations, making sure you do things in a realistic manner. There. So we've got our eagle's head. And there's an extra part above, which I suppose you'd have to call that bit underneath, actually. Like a build up to a larger head, if you like. Bring that down. You got that depth of shape there. Bring this up. Now, this, I'm here with you for 2 hours today, from 1 to 3 a.m. Eastern. And we may not have enough time to ink this, but we are rendering it. We're getting our basic shapes in here. And we may do a simple, basic pencil render. If we can get that far, that will be a result. That will be a result. There. And here's that other signification of like a bird. Presence of a bird, you could say. Good. You've got that helmet going in. Nice. Now, we had a basic shape that went in at the beginning. And let me show you the importance of that, because what we're going to do now is quite complex. Our shape will help us. First thing is there's a decoration on the head, almost a bit native Indian-like. Let's drop this in first. I wouldn't be surprised if Odin's headgear here, even though it's Norse mythology, there's certain things here that does look a bit Native American-like. There. Good. Then there's a series of shapes that follow the circumference of what we've already designated. And there's about 1, 2, 3, there's about 5, I think, on each side. So here's where it gets a bit tricky. We'll put in the first one, and it comes in at an angle. So what we can look at is we have an overall shape. We got from there to there. And we want to put in, let's have a quick count. 1, 2, I think about 5. So we want to divide up this into 5, but they get less as they go down. So that's 2. You know, drawing is all about averaging. And I'm going to move these, spacing things out. As I say, averaging is a major part of drawing. And I think I mentioned on this show before that some doctors in Australia, about 20 years ago now, some research. They carried out some research, and they came to the conclusion that if a person can draw naturally, i.e. judge distances, get shapes right, etc., you are officially on the spectrum. Something a bit strange to me when I first heard it, but the reason why I think it might be true is that, have you ever seen the drawings of a person that really cannot draw? Which is, dare I say, the average person. Most people can't draw naturally. So it would appear that any of us who, since we were young, could copy things that is just distances automatically. I think I can accept that. That's a bit odd. That's a bit different, let's say. So there we've got 5 shapes on that side, and we got a depth of 10 going down here, correct? So what we need to do now is put in similar shapes on the other side, but we've got that depth of head. So let's gauge some 5. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we can try with this first. So let's put the basic shape in. You can see I'm sketching here, right? Okay, I'm doing it digitally. I'm acting as if this is traditional. And that means
Keep those pencils light.
Indeed. Keep those pencils light. So we're coming to put in this detail. And as it's coming up, now this one see, I gotta adjust my angle slightly. There. 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 That's better. And it's got those shapes at the edge. So let's just reaffirm that now. There. And put this one in. There. We're going to get to the body soon. Well, there's some interesting shapes going on there. And we're also going to see how Jack Kirby would drop blacks in things. Good. Now on the front, what is quite interesting again is he's got two horns on his head, which I find to be quite amazing. So here, let's come back down to this area. And what we do is we put the circle in for the base of the horn. We make sure we know where the horn is. There. And we go the other side and plot the position of that horn as well. Remember, it's going around the head, so the shape is becoming more compressed. That gives us let's get this horn going. So actually, there's a ring. Mustn't forget that. There's a ring, and the horn comes out from the center. So we drop the ring in first. Again, you can never underestimate what happens to shapes undergoing rotations. Right, so now I've got my horn in. I'm going to draw through the object. Sorry, I'm going to ignore the drawing through the object and just render the part that is visible. There. Now this head is slightly rotated. So this horn, if you like, it's going to poke out more because we're more at a side on view. We take that out slightly, a little bit wider. Now, just how much wider you would take that, it can't be calculated. But I think this is what those doctors mean about it being a bit special if you can kind of like imagine something like this looks kind of correct. Let's have a bit more of that ring visible. It's better. Okay. Good. We're building up the headgear nicely. Now, something else that he's got going on that I find to be very interesting are two things down the side of his face. One here kind of comes from behind the things that I call the Iron Man cogs. There. And let's go the other side. Remember I mentioned about drawing things in stereo. I'll go the other side and put those in as well. Just goes the other side of the Iron Man cog. And these decorations have 3 circles on them. And they get slightly bigger as they come down. Now here, different angle. It's going around the head, so the circles will become more shallow. Good. And there's a block. part. Actually, there's like a prong that comes out the side of the head. I'm going to draw through the object. I'm going to do this first. This, and then it goes out. This is so Jack Kirby. Comes out. Whoops. Let's make that a little bit more shallow. Let's bring it up to here. There. Good. And the other side. Now, as it's going around his head, right? So as it goes around his head, the angle will make the curvature slightly different. So I'm just projecting across here to make sure you get it at the right depth. Okay, that looks about right. There. So Jack Kirby had a very, very wild and wonderful imagination. It needs to be a bit wider, I think. There. Okay, let's draw this up now. Funny, the last 2 weeks, the show was recorded because I was in the UK. So today, it's actually live. And I'm still a bit jet lagged. I am not myself. I'm sleeping at the wrong times. Terrible. Okay, let's get a little bit of decoration going in here. These spikes. A bit more shallow as they go around the head. There. Now there's these blocks that come down the side of the head, and they kind of meet this. They're in front of the spikes, and very interesting. That, make sure my monitor's correct. There. So the block comes in here, in front of that. And go up. There. Now we can lose that detail there because these blocks are actually in front. Nice. Nice. Good for nice. And they actually now control the shape of the helmet. So now we can come in and reaffirm this new depth to the helmet. There. And here's where we get very Jack Kirby. There are a couple of big horns. First of all, there's like a block up here, and it goes off. Hang on. It goes off. 2 horns, you could say. It starts here in the block, goes up. So you put this block in here. We go the other side, as I said. Now this block is, these things have got depth, so we have to imagine this block is slightly behind now. I can go off at a tangent and come down. Imagine it's a bit Native American, so we've got to imagine that headdress has got depth to it. And here, it's a big horn on the top. There. So as this goes around, it's going to come from behind. There. Got to make sure we get the right curvature going in. There. And at the depth of the head. Good. And another kind of very Jack Kirby-like prop here. A big hook goes off the head. Let's shape something like that. You curve it. So if you're drawing along at home, it doesn't matter if you don't get it exactly the same as me. What I most want to share here is just this process of going from fundamental shapes to finer detail. It's easy to keep track of things when you come from a basic shape, you see. So here there's our basic block. Now we're going to take this horn, which is here. Again, because it's different angle, let's take that into account. Make sure we get the right depth on that. So from here, you might see it might be sticking out less. You can see something more like this. Same thickness, of course, at the top. We're foreshortening the horn, if you like. And as I've discussed here on this stream in the past, I deem foreshortening to possibly be the most difficult part of drawing. When you have a good understanding of foreshortening, your drawing can improve quite a bit. A joint goes in here. And a bit of fun curvy decoration. Get some depth going in there. Do a couple of circles. Jack Kirby did like his circles. I'll have to say that. He did like his circles. There. There's like a pattern. Again, you see, become with this like this feathers thing. Not a bird influence here for some reason. Yeah. Comes down. Good. That'll do. And this basic shape we did before is actually a feathered texture. So we can drop that in here. See, again, emphasizing the fundamental shape just allows us to then come in and actually put the texture in. Now there's a large kind of shape on the back of Odin's head. And take it down here, like a spiked kind of thing. And again, as it goes around his head, we've got to make sure, you can debate if whether or not you would actually see it on the other side. These are things that are always up for discussion. I'm going to take it that we can just about see it. So I'm going to bring it out, make sure your lines are the right height. This top one is about here. We're going to see this one. He's going to come down. And I think that one will be hidden behind the horn. I'm just going to draw something just so we can see a hint of it. There. Good. And I'm looking forward now to the weapon, right? We got his mustache and his beard behind, but let's just sort out this weapon. Because we got a basic shape here, but this has a lot of very typical Jack Kirby-like detail. We put in the line there. And let's say we put in this detail here. Now this is a rounded point here. There. We reaffirm the shape of the weapon. We won't see the bottom of the weapon. Just the part he's holding. And the weapon is slightly going away from us, so the curvatures slightly go up in the center. So we've got double here. And there's another tramp line here, call it. There's a couple more tram lines here. Now we've got the center of the weapon. And what we want to do is the top of the weapon, whoops, is very much an oval. So we've got a basic shape that we did. And we're dropping in the detail. This one comes out, goes down here. There. You can see here, for example, if you've got things that are not quite in shape, you will soon find out when you get to actually rendering. So here, I'm going to take out the bottom section here, a little bit wider. I'm going to flatten that slightly as well. There, and I'm going to broaden this part here so we can put some decoration in. That is very Kirby-esque. Good. Now we come to the fingers again, and something quite unique about Jack Kirby is he would often draw fingers with more than 2 joints, not including your knuckle. Your fingers have got 2 joints here, and sometimes he'd have more than 2 joints. But the way he do it, it's like didn't kind of matter, to be honest. But this is very curvy, these lines. And you've got the thumb coming over, and you've got your lines that will then depict the traveling of that thumb. He made things look very easy. And then this finger, what you'd often do is, see this ring finger is a little bit more extended. So it's like it's slightly relaxed. And I can't honestly tell you if he did it on purpose. But I'll tell you what, it's got a lot of emotion. Little finger. There, good. Now let's have a look at that beard. Okay, it's coming down here. There it is. There. Under the bottom lip. And there it is. Give us a rough sketch on this. We shall render this shortly. We get a clean sketch. There you are. And we can just reaffirm the helmet. There you are. We're going to come to the armor in a minute, which should be fun. Now, what have I not done? What do I always preach in these workshops? I always preach
Save!
not practicing what I'm preaching. Terrible. Good. So in true regal style, a man has shoulder pads, like a shoulder armor. Right, so this is just a bust shot. So I want it to come off the shoulder. So it comes over here, like that. It's gonna come down at an angle. Up. It's big. So it's going to come from here. There you go. Now that is a very Jack Kirby like kind of thing. So we take it across. It's an equal side there. It's going to come down somewhere around here. So let's make sure we get this even. There. That's going to carry over there. And like we did with some of our other auspicious characters, these shoulder pads can make a character very, very important looking. And we're going to get into a bit of classic Jack Kirby like costume design. I'm going to take that over here. This thing is going to go down the center of his body. Now, we're going to try and keep our trajectories on track. So if that's going to come up here, this should actually come across a little bit more. Good. And looking at his hand now with greater detail, I think we can drop the palm of the hand in here and make the entire thing. Let's drop the back of the arm down here. And imply that the lower arm is somewhere over here. Yeah, I think that's got a bit more weight to it. So Kirby had these very interesting ideas on costumes. And it's this sort of stuff that I really like. You get a pattern that's something like this. You put a circle on it. Superb. You get another shape. There's like a big thing across his entire costume, covering his upper torso. And some decorative lines. And keep these all on the same plane, roughly speaking. And then drop some more in between, but like if there's a drop in the armor. That is so Kirby. So we go to the other side, we do it over here. So one here has a slightly different shape. Bring this down. And on the circle. Make sure we keep things in the right height. And there. We did quite a few full-length studies in Auspicious August, and this one is more of a focus on the upper torso. And I do want to render this, so I'm trying to rush through this last part. If you're following me at home, well, you can always watch back the recording. Let's get a bit more detail here on this costume. And Doctor Strange has a pattern on his cape that I think definitely came from okay, I'm not sure who designed Doctor Strange. I'm not sure if it was Steve Ditko or Jack Kirby. It could have been Steve Ditko. But there were certain patterns that came about with a lot of the Marvel characters at a certain time. I think it might have been Ditko. And I normally signify it by just scribbling. And when you're inking, it does work. You can have it as a more calculated pattern. But quite ingenious. Okay, good. Now we got a basic sketch there. There's our basic detail. And how long have we got left? We still got 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do is, we're now going to try and do a basic pencil render of everything we've got. So we're not going to, we're only going to render the lines that we would definitely see. So we end up with a definitive sketch. So let's just put in a little bit more detail here. These bits of the headgear, they have a thickness. I'm going to drop that in there. These actually add a little bit of depth to the head actually. Whoops, look at that. I'm getting confused with my own drawing. Good Lord, boy. This is the next one here. What I do? One here, and one there. So, you know what? I think we can ink this, you know. Let's ink it. Yeah, we got enough time, I think. Let me knock my pencils back. I'm going to go straight to inking. I think we can ink and spot this. Right, so let me get my inking. I gotta use a brush. I've got 10 pixels, it's quite thick. 1 out of 7. Second. Yeah, that looks okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink this with a combination of thick and thin, because what I normally do is, or what I often say, is inorganic matter can have a dead weight line, which means there's no variation. But as the late great Tom Palmer taught me, when he inked, I was fortunate enough to get him to ink one of my SupaCross variant covers. And I saw him ink what was a wall in my sketch. And what he did was, he didn't use a straight edge tool. He was inking traditionally. He did it very freehand, very organic. And I said to him, I love the way how you inked that straight edge, freehand. And his reply to me was, that's because not all straight lines are straight. And since then, I had a different attitude towards inking inorganic matter. And depending on my mood, I will ink very, very rigid metal, or typically inorganic matter, but freehand, because it does have a different feel. And I've grown to really appreciate it. And if you actually look at some of the great comic artists of old, they do it very often. They inked machinery and wood with just their hand. They didn't use a straight edge tool of any kind. And something else that Jack Kirby would do is, I often put in lots of detail where you might get metal things meeting. I would put little dents and crevices. And he was less intense in that way. You might just get a smooth line. Like here. See here, where this meets there, I would often put a dent like this. So it looks like if there's a crease there where there's in a piece of metal. But a lot of the older artists would keep things very clean. And I'm going to go for that more retro look with this. See, I'm not using any straight edge tools to do any of these finer details here, which I often would. And there is something nice about varied lines. I mean, you can't, I mean, within reason, you can't have your lines all over the place. But varied weight lines have a certain presence about them. But they say things cannot go too far off, or it will look messy. There. And I'm going to spot this as well, because one thing that Kirby did, like no other artist, was the way he spotted things. Is areas of putting in black into certain designs. As you're going to see with this, it's amazing. It can really set the design off. Yeah. See how they're looking. Yeah, that's looking pretty decent. 1 second. I've got comment here of some kind. Oh, it's a piece of spam. They're always sending in things about how to maximize your stream in the messages. Yeah. You notice the outer line there is thicker than this inner line. It's what I call a decoration line. And there's basic 3 line widths. Basically three line widths that I work with. And one is the outer key line, you can call it. One is a costume line. And then there's detail. And you can get away with 2, but I tend to work with 3 generally. The line that I'm doing here, I can see, is the outside of a certain area. So it's thicker. Now this is a corner. This piece of headgear has a depth in it. So because that's within the object, I tend to ink those with a thinner line. When you have a consistency of line weights across, dare I say, a code like that, the image holds together better. Yeah, I'm using a software called Clip Studio Paint, and I'm currently using a function called stabilization. It keeps the hand steady, because inking sounds odd, but inking traditionally, to a large extent, is easier than inking digitally. You know, to stabilize a hand when you're inking traditionally seems easier than when working digitally. But the stabilization function Feels very, very organic. See, what you perceive to be the end of an object, you give it a thicker line. And what you perceive to be an inner part of an object, you give a thinner line. When something has a sharp edge, I might actually come to a thin point to accentuate the point. Whoops. And we'll do the feather effect later. Now here's the tricky one. As this cog meets the head, I go thin, but then as it comes out and it's isolated, I go thin. And I call these inner decoration lines to be thin. I will ink the mustache separately because I don't want stabilization for that. That needs a very, very more loose and open style. A left-right, as I call it. In my book, I demonstrate that, and I'll do it again here. Okay, let's go to the other side. There. Here's our prongs, our sharp edges. Drop those in. That edge is hidden there. If it meets the other metal, I'm going to go thin. See the trajectory of that's different because it's on the edge, the other side of the head. As I was preparing this exercise, I was thinking, wow, this is complex. But you know what? I think it's worth it. But it's Jack Kirby. Okay. So we've got a helmet. We've got now the helmet encroaches in front. This comes the eyebrows coming from underneath the helmet. I'm not really sure if that's possible, but it looks good. The texture they master. I'm gonna have eagle's feet. And I treat a lot of this very organically. Thinner lines. Is it all within the helmet? Okay, I'm going to give the bird a thicker tail. You can see there's plenty of drawings through the object underneath. And I would say that that's something as a young artist is generally not taught. Or not known, sorry. You know, we will try to draw things accurately from the get-go and not start with generic shapes and then fill in the blanks later. I would deem that to be a relatively advanced aspect of drawing. There's just certain things that you do when you're young that you don't think about doing. Unless someone tells you that, it's not likely that you're going to discover it by yourself. It's like most things, once someone brings your attention to something, it's much easier to, but it's not difficult to grasp. I had an English teacher named Mr. Rhodes, and he taught us all about marketing when we were, I think it's what you call it, for all the people in America, I think you call it 8th grade. In England, we call it Sec 1, second year in secondary school. And he was such a good teacher. As I said, if someone tells you something at a very early age, it's more than possible that you could retain it, the information. And a lot of what he taught me, I later used in my career in advertising and design. Because I went straight in as a visualizer, an illustrator. And later became an art director and creative director and chief copywriter. But I didn't actually go to college to study those specific areas of marketing. But because of Mr. Rhodes, what he taught me, when I added it onto my illustrative skills, people just assumed that I studied marketing, etc. And I find drawing is very similar. If you introduce someone to something at a very early age, even if they can't master it, they're aware of it. And they will get the hang of it sooner rather than later. But it's when you're not aware of it. That's where young artists can spend a very long time doing things that they shouldn't have done otherwise. I know I taught myself how to play a piano. And something that I just wasn't aware of, excuse me, is you find middle C. Very basic. But once you've got that home key, so to speak, once you find middle C, things become much easier. I never did learn how to type properly though. I still type with only a few fingers. Okay, get into the armor. We do the face last. We still got 25 minutes. We should be good. We should be good. I've not inked such detail freehand for a long time, so I'm quite enjoying this. Now here is a good example of a second line width that I will punctuate with a third line width that you'll see in a minute. I'm usually quite precise with my inking. On this one, I'm being a bit more casual. Now here, these decorative lines. These are your third width. A little bit thinner. There's an inker called Art Thibert or Art Thibert. Thibert, I'm not quite sure. And I'm sorry, lines in a few places here. And he had a great way of inking where he would put like blotches at the edge of lines. I've never seen anyone ink like that before. I find it quite refreshing. And I do actually use it. It's some instances now. That's also in my book. That's a horrible circle, Jerome Hinds. What the? What the? That's not much better either. I am a bit of a neat freak, you know. I was tidying up the house this week. And it's an old English saying, a place for everything and everything in its place. I'm a firm believer of that. Okay. Yeah. Then as it goes on the back of that arm, a thinner line for the armor. Now the fingers. Staff. I'm going to move the palm up slightly. Okay, let's get these fingers going. See bold here. Jack Kirby. Sometimes it involves me knuckles. Put that in there. Index finger. Thumb. Prop. There. Now this is not the most accurate drawing I've ever done for this weapon. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the outline. I'll show you why. Do the outline first, then I'm going to drop in the inner lines. Okay, good. Okay. go for art type work. Thick, thin, thick, thick, thin, thick, thick, thin, thick. And I like the effect that this gives. Varied line weights always come across nicely. And these decorations, these will be very fine. Again, art fiber splodge at the beginning. Then drag it down into thinness. Good. Let's put these joints very thick, thin. And you see how thin the line is? And I do this also traditionally. I will put these decorative lines thin. Oh, thank you very much. A few of you have liked the video. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now these curves of these lines, of course, these are adding to the bend of the finger. These are quite important when it comes to depth of field. And quite often, when you look at the portfolio of some younger artists, some of the problems that they might run into comes from not curving their lines enough, you could say. My God, look at the state of that inky. Overshooting all over the place. Concentrate, boy. As I mentioned earlier, I've been in UK for the last couple of weeks. So this is a recorded show. Well, it was a recorded show for the last 2 weeks. And been back a few days now. But man, am I jet lagged. God damn. Of course, I'll be back later today at 6 p.m. with Madness Art Attack. I'm going to run a trailer for what we did last time on Madness Art Attack. So let me just pause the music. Here's what we did. It was a recorded show. And it was just me, I think. It was just me and Q Continuum. Is it here? Good Lord. Yeah, here we go.
Previously on Madness Art Attack.
Madness on attack. Madness on attack. Madness on attack. Madness on attack.
So me, Raoul and T and Q Continuum will be here at 6 p.m. with another episode. And I don't know if you saw in the credits at the beginning of this show today, it was quite celebratory. This is the 50th episode of Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. The time has gone extremely fast. Okay, get a move on, boy. Time is tight. Tight like a tiger. But they do want to spot this. It's amazing how fast time goes when you're drawing. It never fails to amaze me. Yeah, very. Jack Kirby had these amazing ideas of decor. Even the scribbling that I think originated with Steve Ditko. Great textures. Okay, that is pretty much it for main detail without feathering. So let's quickly go in. Let's put in the basics on the face. We'll spot this in a moment. There's so many different ways of drawing eyes. The greats from superheroes. They had such a distinct way of doing it. And I've got to be careful of not getting carried away and drawing my usual big eyes. Okay, so let's bit helmet. We get into the feathering of the beard and the hat, etc. shortly. Okay, so let's I'm not sure if it's even possible. Possible or not, it looks good. I was going to use a more elaborate style to ink this, his mustache and beard, etc. But I'm going to keep it more simple. I think it's fine. Whoops. Inking lines must meet as well. Sometimes with my students, when lines don't meet, I will warn them that to keep things looking neat, that the lines should meet. That rhymed. Keep things neat, lines must meet. God damn. Man's a poet. I'm simplifying this beard. I was going to make the beard more complex than this, but okay, there's the hat. I'll simplify this as well. 9 minutes left. Can he spot in 9 minutes? We shall see. Okay. I think we are there with our fundamental inking. I shall switch off my construction and I shall, what will I do? I will
Save!
Yes, I will. And now I am going to look at dropping in spotting. Okay, first of all, let's have a look at the areas. I'll put in SP for spot, make that layer black. And we'll see what we can paint bucket immediately. Right, we can paint bucket this, this, and this, and this, and this. We can paint bucket under here, under here. We can paint bucket in here. Got a bit of decoration going on there. Paint bucket this, 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 and this. Bit of decoration going on there. Let's put in some of the spotting decor. Whoops, bit of sketching that I didn't do. There's some lines that go in here, like this. I missed these out. Naughty boy. But Kirby has these little bits of detail out. It's fantastic. And I can't leave them out. And I'm going to treat these with thick and thin, especially. And then there's some bits of spotting that have special shapes to them. And I shall put in some of them now. Let's have a look. I want to get full Jack Kirby here. We cannot. This sort of stuff is what you cannot leave out. It's what made him unique. This kind of shading. The way he would he would just drop these little bits of black areas that you would think, wow, why did he do that? But it works so well. Very, very unique to him. Very, very unique. I need to put 0 on this. Five minutes. Can I do this in 5 minutes? A bit complex, but let's go. Let's go. I'm amazed at how he thinks of these bits of black. No one else does it like him. No one else at all. You must concentrate. I think I'm gonna run out of time. Oh man, I'm gonna run out of time, man. God damn. I get the most important parts, then, shall I? How about that? I'll do the most important bits. That should be good enough. Yeah. Yeah. See, he got this way of spotting that just no one else did this. Not at all. So now, watch this. Watch the difference it's going to make. Look at that. I just love the way he did things like this. Oops. See, even without the hatching, because there's more to put into this, I can just do the main spotting. Yeah, come in here. A bit shallow under the helmet. Then we put a bit of detail on the horns. Absolute true genius. No one else did it like him. And you know, sometimes you can look at someone and you get their inspiration. I mean, where their inspirations came from. Hard to see where his inspirations came from. He's a total individual. Completely. Okay, let's start with the inking here. We put a line in here. And there. Right, let's just have a look at the body. I'm going to drop in a bit of spotting on the body, and we will, what we can do is, we can just come in here, put in line there. We just go for spotting and no hatching. Let's have a look at the shoulder pads. Yeah, boy. Make that spotting a bit bigger. Put in a big bit of spotting here. Big spotting there. Drop in some spotting. There. Same here. Let's see what we got here. Forgot some of my whoops. Line is not closed off. Line is not closed off, boy. Whoops, I've gone all the time. Okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna get carried away. So let's have a look. So here, the mighty Thor's father, Odin. There we go. We can stop there. Again, you have the mighty Thor's father, Odin. And we started with, whoops, this is put this up to 100%. There we go. Quick recap. We started with our skeleton, as per usual. Then we did the basic fleshing out. We made sure we found the center of everything. Then we put the detail in. Then we inked the essentials. And lastly, we put in some main bits of spotting. Awesome. So next month, we will be having Super September, where we'll be focusing on my characters from SupaCross, and I will be welcoming some of my current day students, ex-students and ex-interns. They will be drawing along with me from the second week onward, maybe next week as well, but definitely from the second week onward. And the pencils that we do in September, we have to come back again in Inktober, which is October, and we will finish the sketches then. But thanks for joining once again. My name is Jerome Judge Hinds, and I will be back at 6 p.m. with the boys for Madness Art Attack. Meanwhile, I shall play the trailer for the upcoming month. I shall see you all back here a little bit later, hopefully. Hopefully, he says, hopefully. So here's what's happening in Super September. See you soon. Cheers.
Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along invites you to join MadLad. Jerome Judge Hinds as the Madness Entertainment Group presents Super September. That's right, you'll be learning how to draw characters from the Judge's SupaCross miniseries. And this is the crossover of crossovers, because all you'll need is a pencil, as this is in preparation for Inktober, where you'll get to ink all the pencil exercises from the previous month. And this is all truly in the style of Judge's new book, How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book. Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along Super September, only on the Madness Entertainment Group Network.
Draw
If you miss the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel